The Burg votes, up close and personal interviews with the candidates.
Okay.
You know me?
Sort of, kind of. Okay. So we do, we kind of tag team in years past on election season coverage. These are samples of the voter guide. Have you seen it before?
I have. I've watched, yes, I have.
Okay. Very nonpartisan, non-endorsing coverage, chock full of fact-based coverage, candidate profiles. So we're going to interact with you and your team in 3 different ways. So we've got a questionnaire that we worked on yesterday. Be prepared because the questionnaire has probing, challenging questions for both of the front-running candidates, right? So if you see a tough question, there's an equally tough question on the same topic for Christman.
So all the questions are the same to everybody?
No. Some of them are the same for both.
Okay.
And when I say both, I mean the front-running candidate.
Right.
And then where we diverge, and I'll give you an example, we ask a tough question of you and a tough question of Christman. So to give you an example, on the topic of presidential politics, Christman's question is, and this is from memory, why do you so vigorously oppose Donald Trump? Do you feel that your boycott of all things Trump limits our city's ability to pull down federal resources and leverage relationships? So that's the tough question for him. The tough question for you is, did you support Donald Trump? Why? And do you understand why that's a negative for the African American community? So I'm giving you this rundown of it so that you don't think that we're being
sure, because the question does seem to assume that I did, so it's an interesting question.
Did you?
I did not. I never endorsed Donald Trump.
Okay.
I never met Donald Trump.
Did you support him in any way?
I'm not going to talk about who I voted for.
Okay.
But beyond that, I did not get involved in the Trump campaign.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Fair enough. And we'll go back. So that's one piece of this. The other piece is going to be the standard, and I'll show you one. So this is an example of a standard profile, which is going to be fact-based, and that's going to be the same wording for everybody. And the third piece is going to be this interview.
Okay.
So since we are doing it, so this year, different approach. We're teaming up, we're doing it digitally. We're doing a platform like the MSNBC election platform, if you've ever seen it. New York Times has a platform like it. Tons of juicy facts about the black vote. And so that'll be dynamic. So we could add things to it as things break, etc. Okay? Did you want to say any other introductory remarks?
Well, everybody else has participated in the video. So is that something you think about down the road?
So
interviewing you, just interviewing you on tape, and it'll be edited down to about 10 minutes.
For the challenger?
For the video guide.
The digital voter guide.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So that, and we can talk with your people about that, Mayor, because it's we kind of feel it's important because everybody else is going to have one, and so it would be look strange.
Right.
And people hate reading.
Right.
People don't like reading.
Oh, they do.
Some people hate reading. More people are watching videos.
Right.
Right. Okay. Okay, so should we jump? Okay, did you want to ask permission about the...
Can we record you?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so we're going to go through just a few questions this morning. How much time did you give us, Mayor?
About 45 minutes.
Okay, got
40
it.
minutes.
All right. So, where's this? Here's kind of where we want to start out this morning. I'm going to show you something. This was one of my editions, this Inside the Black Economy of St. Petersburg. I'm going to show you our ex-offender, or a glimpse into our ex-offender challenge. Okay. So here, a couple points on this page, Mayor. So here's about the difference. White men in prison, black men in prison. from the city of St. Petersburg, right? Actual percentage of the adult male population. When we studied it, this was a point in time analysis. So this was June 2013 using county data, using state data, which by the way is used to be aggregated by race, gender, and at the county level is no longer aggregated by race, gender. So this is an estimate. So you're talking 5,600 black men in and from St. Petersburg under criminal system control, criminal justice system control. What has happened over time is, and there was an escalation in incarceration from the early 1980s here in Pinellas County through approximately 2012. That kind of on the back end of that output tons and tons of black men, especially with criminal records. How would you, so now this is impacting employment in a major way. Also, Mayor, it's impacting, there's another one here, fatherlessness in a major way. We had a huge spike over the past 8 years or so in, here's part of it, African American babies born to unwed mothers. So this incarceration challenge is hitting us in a couple of ways, including in the workforce, etc. So Mayor Baker, what can you do in city leadership to alleviate and begin to turn the tide on that problem?
So let's just ask so I can figure out where we're going. Because you're going to send me a questionnaire.
Right.
Right, and I'm going to fill out. But we're also going to do questions here. Are they going to be tied to the questionnaire, or how does this work?
Actually, the questions we had for this morning weren't on that questionnaire.
The questionnaire is just kind of generic.
Uh-huh.
The questionnaire is about what was the most impactful thing you did in policing. It has 5 questions on education. It's got, what were the other major categories? 1 question on the CRA. It kind of goes through categories.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think that one of the most important things we can do is
Pen is not working.
I think what he's saying though is that he understands you all are questioning here, but it would be his preference if he could respond to all those questions in writing. You know what I'm saying? As opposed to, because you know that's when you start talking about ex offender, that, and all those things, it's going to take some looking at those numbers and try to figure out what's what, and generating a response. And rather than do it off the top of his head, he'd probably be more cogent if he did it, responded to you all the questions in writing.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
I do see what you're saying. So then let's back out of questions that have to do with data, right? So that you can kind of take this or anything, you know, and I can send you briefing reports and et cetera.
sure. And I will do this. I've gone through your 2020 plan, and but I've not memorized every part of it when I've gone through it. But I would anything you send me, I will read and review, and then we can respond to it.
Okay, all right. Now we wanted, and by the way, Corey is executive director for the 2020 Plan Task Force.
Oh, okay.
So I actually rerouted them and said, hey, y'all come over here and have coffee this morning. Because I wanted you all to connect about a meeting for 2020 specifically.
Okay. Sure.
With some members of the 2020 Task Force, Art O'Hara, Harvey Landris, myself, Corey, Deborah Fig-Saunders, etc. So we wanted to cover that separately, Mayor.
Okay. Sure.
This is trying to speak generally to where the heart of the community is at the moment.
Okay.
Okay. So let's switch gears to something more general.
Okay.
Give us a sense for your philosophy on the next phase of economic growth and development in South St. Pete. Let me do one more minute of background on that. So as Dr. Davis can tell you, when I had serious angst about Bill Foster in office and his lack of tangible, measurable progress for the black community. And I tell people this now. you are unrivaled anywhere that I know of in terms of just the pace of redevelopment in South St. Petersburg. 500,000 square feet of commercial revitalization, historic preservation, new construction, not to mention the housing. You know, just, and if I could show you some of my writings, which I will try to get to Dr. Davis to print out and show you. I have personally held up that standard, even with the Christ and the team. So I get it, and I get what that meant to the community. I was on the team that developed Tangerine Plaza, etc. Right? Now, what is the next leg? How do we move in this space of time to continue developing, and more specifically, to grow the economy of South St. Pete?
I guess the way I have always approached it is that there are two, at least two, and I'm sure I missed some. There are two elements to it. There's one is the effort to improve the resources that the community has, and the access to services that the community has, and access to facilities that the community has, which is which changes the environment, right? So that it's an environment that I'm a big believer in the broken windows theory, that if you change the environment, and you can change what goes on in the environment as well, not by itself, but it goes to help impact that. And so when I took great offense to when Rick Reisman has been repeating for 4 years that all we did was build buildings and he's going to help people. Right? I think that is an excuse for not building any buildings, an excuse for not doing any more tangible results in the community, which he's not done. Because when you build a clinic, like we did at the Johnny Reed Clinic, that is more than just building a building. It's more than just a commercial redevelopment. It was that, because that site had been, the Mercy Hospital had been falling down for 50 years when we took office. And it was very hard to do that. You know, these things we can just rattle off easily, but each one of them is incredibly hard to do. We had to, Bill Young was very supportive of that. We got $4 million from Bill Young. From a grant, we used CDBG money for that, partnered with John Clark, which were critical to that because they're the partner. And then we redeveloped it and worked it. And now, not only is it a building, but there are jobs inside that building. Because there are people working in that building. They're all levels of jobs for people in the community. And there's services being provided in the community that are critical. You know, we talk about Healthy St. Pete. There's nothing more important to Healthy St. Pete than having affordable health care right in the community. And something that a city can do is providing for affordable, is to do what we did to put that mechanism in place. So for and that's replicated with the St. Pete College campus next door, because and all those facilities up and down 22nd Street and the Johnson Library and Delta, all those things have they're providing services for people. In addition to providing jobs inside, in addition to changing the appearance of the economic appearance of that, and we talk about the CRA. And if you were there last night, the CRA I support the CRA. I want to make sure. I would want to make sure that it's targeted to programs that really are. I'm a result-oriented person. Are they really moving the line and helping the community? And as opposed to doing things as a political favor or something like that, I'm absolutely against that. Even if it's for my friends, I just think everything should be done for what's best for the city, what's best to help the people that we're identifying to be helped. So that's all those redevelopment that we did, which was a lot. I mean, the Child's Park, YMCA, the Child's Park Library, not library, well, the library in the Child's Park YMCA, which was the Child's Park Pool, all those things that we developed helped change that environment appearance. And I think really, while I was in office, there was a feeling that the Child's Park and the Midtown communities were advancing, and they were downtown was doing great, but there wasn't as much resentment about downtown because there was a feeling that in our community it was advancing as well.
Right.
And I think that I don't see it as now that phase is over, right? I see that is a component of what we should be doing, but that phase never ends. We should always be working to help improve the resources and the appearance, and I absolutely believe that community should have a grocery store. I think it's insulting to say they shouldn't, and I think that the Sweet Bay went away because Sweet Bay went out of business. So that was not a negative thing in my opinion for the community. The Walmart went away because of lack of attention, I believe. I think Walmart maybe didn't know what to do with and how to serve this community, and there was really, I don't think, any assistance from the city government at the time to push that along. So the answer is that phase of it. It's Gypsy. I don't see that phase being done. It's not like, okay, well you did that, so what are we going to do differently, right? That phase needs to continue to make sure we grow because Midtown and Childs Park, they made progress, but they certainly don't look like the other parts of our community. And we need to continue to do those things in the community. And on the other end of it and that's the improve the environment. Then you have to change the opportunities for the people that are within that community. And that, to me, that is about three things. It's about education. It's about training for people for jobs, and it's about training people for jobs, and it's for entrepreneurship. And I think those three elements. And I do have a philosophy. My philosophy is that the objective should be for everybody to become self-sufficient, and everybody to become able to support themselves and to support their families, and be able to pay for a car, a house, or send their kids to college or trade school, whatever they want to do, and move that forward. And I believe that is a critical component. I had an opportunity to meet Richard Daley for a day, who was the mayor of Chicago, and he once said, if I could graduate every child from high school, I could probably close many of my jails. And I believe that we tend to focus law enforcement on the law enforcement issue, whether it's car theft or drugs. We tend to focus on the enforcement aspects of it. But a major component of it is you change the opportunities for the kids that are going in that direction and give them a different direction for them to go into, so they don't wind up getting to that point. And that is why, while I was in office, I focused so much on schools, and I focused so much on bringing a college campus with a dental hygienist and other programs into the heart of Midtown St. Petersburg. And while we focused on the Job Corps, bringing the Job Corps site into what was 15 acres of horrible blight in that city, it was chemical, it was an environmental disaster.
What site was that, Mayor?
The Job Corps site. That site had abandoned buildings, a crime going on. It was a dumping lot for a lot of people in the community, contractors and other things, and there was a lot of environmental issues we had to clean up in order to move that site back from what it was to what it is today, where it provides jobs inside, there are people working there, and it provides training for people to go get jobs other places. So I believe that I think the Head Start program that we rebuilt the Jordan School and tried to, well, again, you're doing a couple things. You're maintaining the character of the community by going back, and the school board had already decided to demolish that school. And I asked them to give it to us so that we could get the funding. And again, Bill Youngate got us the funding for that to rebuild that. And we did, and made it a Head Start program. So the education component's important. The fact that I think we got into the public schools, and I could give you my half hour to talk about public schools if you want, but you probably don't. But we did a ton of stuff in the public schools, and we had our public schools feeling supported in St. Petersburg. When I was in office, the principals, they felt supported by the city when I was in office, and I think like they have not since then. And so when you go out and do what I did was raise 1,000 private money for 1,000 four-year college scholarships for kids in free and reduced lunch programs in St. Petersburg. Through the well, I raised the money through the Doorways programs, the mayor's Doorways program.
Okay.
And you give those scholarships to those kids, and you tell them in 6th grade that if your attendance is good, conduct is good, drug-free, crime-free, C average, you're going to go to college.
Okay.
Then
I know the program.
Then 93. We tracked all the kids in our program, and 93% and 93% of those kids graduate from high school and went out of college. 93%. Those are the Doorway statistics. I know.
How many of those were African American?
I don't know the percentage, but they were
Okay.
all free and reduced lunch kids.
Okay.
So it's a very high percentage of our African Americans. We tracked them with mentors, and I handed out each one of those scholarships. One of them was sitting next to me, who was running
I
against me.
saw it. I Facebooked
for
about that
office
last
right
night. I called it the cutest moment of the debate.
And it's Aaron Hoggabook was my mentee when he was going through. He was an African American young man. I mentored during that while I was in office. So it's the point is, and during that period of time, I saw from the 2020 statistics that the number of African Americans in St. Pete that graduated from high school went on to college increased significantly. And I went to college. The graduations increased
Both.
too. Yeah, both.
Black male graduation
Right.
more than doubled.
Right.
And then college enrollment doubled, and college graduation was up by 80-some%.
And I don't know how many, so let's say, 35, 40%. I don't know what percent was African American. Maybe it's 50, I don't know. But I would have to believe that putting 1,000 college scholarships during that period of time for kids in free and reduced programs had an impact on that statistic. So and to me that's the type of thing I like to do stuff that I know is actually moving the dial. That is going to change the statistic and move the dial. So as you know, Go and Rick, it's almost like Go and Rick Davis. They're both like they're brothers or something. But they're in the co-ed program in the schools. I am. Nobody doubted that I was the education mayor when I was. We had two columns on it in the newspaper titled "The Education Mayor," and I supported our schools. I fought for our schools, and we went during that period of time. I'll gladly go over all the education programs I did if you want. But we went from having 0 A elementary schools when I took office out of 27 to 16 when I left. We had no DNF elementary schools. It increased by 260% the number of A and B schools in the city based on student achievement.
I wanted to check that out. Lynn, while I flip to this education stuff, did you want to get a question in?
Oh, yeah, you mentioned Bill Young a lot.
Yeah.
Do you have any relationships with people in Tallahassee or in Washington right now that that were as progressive as Young? Because although he was Republican, he was out for everyone. He didn't, there was no parting with Bill Young.
Well, I think so, and I think that's what people would say about me too. By the way, I think that I have relationships with people more in. Of course, I know Charlie. Of course, I've known Charlie since college, but unfortunately, he's not in a position to do a lot because he's not in the majority party right now in Washington. But I have lots of relationships in Tallahassee, and I have some in Washington as well. I actually was, I have some in Washington as well. The key is so let's talk about Jeb Bush for a second. So Jeb was governor, and I doubt if he got a lot of.
I just want to show you this. So this was happening during your tenure. And I didn't map prior to 2014, but it had gone up all the way to the 3.0, and then it dips way down. This is the aggregate school grade.
My tenure ended right here,
Right.
2009.
Right.
So that's the last one of my tenure.
Right.
Okay. So,
No, I know what you mean. But
So the data supports the assertion.
Right.
yeah,
So finish about
Bill Young.
So Jeb Bush was when I want Gypsy to hear this too because it's.
She in that Facebook.
Oh, she on the phone. When Jeb Bush was a full partner with me in the Midtown redevelopment, I couldn't have done it. I couldn't have done it without Jeb Bush and Bill Young in the process. Jeb, every time he came to town, I would give him a tour of what our progress is being made. He put a lot of state money into the Jordan Park redevelopment when that project was being done. When I was trying to do the Royal Theater, his Front Porch Florida program paid for the air conditioning system in the Royal Theater so that we could get that done. When I was trying to do the Sweet Bay, the grocery store, he called the president of Cash and Carry so that they would have an audience with me to be able to talk about bringing a Sweet Bay grocery store into the community. Then when we lost Walmart, I was out of office, and I called Jeb again. I said, we lost the Sweet Bay, and he knows exactly what I'm talking about. And so he called the president of Walmart, and the president of Walmart called me, and then sent a team down to St. Petersburg so that we could help that. And then when I wanted to get the post office open, nobody, even Bill Young couldn't help me with that. He was trying to help me, he couldn't help me with that. And I went through 3 agonizing years of trying to get that post office. We'd gone to the postman several times, and it was ultimately Jeb Bush who contacted his brother George, and who I met with the intergovernmental director of the President of the United States in the White House in Washington in order to get them to reverse their position on the post office in St. Petersburg. So my point is, and I'm going to repeat all this for Gypsy because I think it's important for. This will be very short.
Okay.
So she asked me about Jeb Bush, and when the Jordan Park project was being funded, Jeb put a substantial amount of money into the Jordan Park project from state money into the Jordan Park redevelopment project. When I wanted to do the Royal Theater, Jeb's agreed that for his Front Porch Florida program to pay for the air conditioning system in the Royal Theater to help us kind of get a kickstart for that. When I wanted to do the grocery store, Jeb called the president of Cash and Carry to get the president of Cash and Carry to talk to me so that we could get that grocery store moving. After I left office and we lost the grocery store, I wasn't in office anymore, but I still called Jeb, and he called the president of Walmart, and he got the president of Walmart to connect with me so that we met. Go and I met in a restaurant right here with the Walmart folks to move the Walmart project back in so that we could have a Walmart grocery store.
Has that been reported by the time?
I don't think it's ever been reported.
And that's interesting because
someone
mentioned last night, after you were out of office, what have you done for the city?
Kept working.
Right.
I kept doing it.
Yeah, so that's a good thing to mention, what you've done since, these last 8 years.
Right.
What's been going on with you and the city.
Well, right, and Go and I have continued to work with Bill Edwards, who I work for, on the Edwards Family Foundation program inside at Wildwood, and we provides hundreds of bicycles and toys and everything for kids at Christmas time. It's a huge book. But then the post office, and I'm just going to share the post office story because I think it's a good indicator. When I wanted to do when we went out into the community, and when we started, and I would do this again, by the way, when we started, Go and I went out and we had a series of community meetings, and we said, when do you think we will have achieved economic development in the community? And we listened to them, and we put together our target list of things to do based on what we heard in the community. So we didn't just invent grocery store, we didn't invent bank, we didn't invent any of that.
I was there at some of the charades.
Right, and so we got all that, and we used that as a check, and we were not going to be refused on any of that stuff. So the post office was a hard one, and so I went to Frank Peterman and I went to the postmaster. And by the way, there's a lot of the Democrat-Republican talk. You will find that I have worked with Democrats and Republicans in order to help the city of St. Pete. I don't care who they are, and I think it's a huge mistake to exclude either side when you're trying to gather resources for the community. And I think what I'm talking about right now is an example of why that's the case. So whether it's the funding for Jordan Park or the funding for the Royal Theater or the grocery store or whatever we're trying to do. So, but Frank Peterman is not a Republican, and he went with me to to the postmaster, and we said that that we want to open this post office for business. We have what, 7 or 8 in the city. This is the only one that don't open up for business. And why don't you open up for business? And he said, well, we don't have the money to do that. I said, well, what kind of money will it take? So you got a building. You just open the door, put a counter in, and sell stamps, right? And the response was, well, we don't have money for the counter. I said, okay.
For the counter?
For the counter.
I
And
said-
not only that, he said that we don't have.
Well, no, I'm gonna get that.
Okay,
I'll get
okay.
that. So I said, okay, I'll pay for the counter.
Yeah.
I'll pay for it. He said, well, we don't have the money for the staff either, right? And I said, staff?
Yeah.
You got people working, just put
Right.
one behind the counter and sell stamps. He said, oh no, we'd be so busy we'd need 3 or 4 people. And I said, well, isn't that good? That's what you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to sell stamps, right? And so it didn't work. So okay, well, this isn't gonna work. So we went to the head of the Southeast United States.
Yeah, we started in Tampa. We went to Memphis, Tennessee, all the way up to the White House.
All the way up. We went there, and then finally we took pictures. Doe took pictures of people having to stand outside,
In the
slide a
line.
window open, in order to get their certified mail that they got at their house returned, right? But no stamps, no post office boxes, no nothing. And so we, he took pictures. I brought up to Jeb Bush. I said, Jeb, here they are. This is wrong. This is wrong. And he
Yeah,
said,
he said not only said this is wrong, he said, Rick, this is going to be easy. Because in the letter that I drafted, I say this is indicative of a time long since past in
Right.
America. Black folks standing at a window,
Right.
you know, to retrieve misdirected mail. And he looked at Rick and said, Rick, this is going to be an easy one. In
Well, that's
terms
what
of
he's-
contacting his brother. you
that's
know?
what he said to me, but I said, I've been at this for 2.5
Sure,
years.
yeah,
It hadn't been easy for me,
yeah.
but of course his brother was president, so it might be easy for him. So I literally then wound up with the intergovernmental director of the President of the United States and the executive office of the White House, and talking about trying to get stamps sold at this point. When we came back, we got
Emergency call.
immediately meeting with the head of the Florida post office, and who it took me a year to get his appointment with him before.
The Florida what post office?
Yeah, the head of the U.S. Postal Office for the state of Florida.
Okay.
And he first said, go when I met with him out at the main post office in St. Pete. He said, well, would you run that? I said,
Yeah,
well,
he
I
wanted
run
to give it
post
to the
office. I said,
city.
are you saying I have to run it? No. I said, okay, you run it. I don't want to run it. And then he said, well, we have 2 ways of doing it. It's going to be $250,000, right? It's going to be $250,000. And to build out, and we can build it out ourselves, but it'll take you 6 years because we got to get it in our budget. I said, well, what's the other option? He said, if you pay for it, we'll do it right now. And so we said, yes, we'll do that. We didn't have any idea where we were going to get the money. But we wound up going to
CDBG.
Catherine, what was her name? Karen Jackson Sims.
Jackson, yeah.
Karen Jackson Sims at HUD. And she I said, well, go call her. And I said, well, Karen, can we use CDBG money for a post office construction in an enterprise zone? And she said, well, it's never been done before, but I don't know why not. Let's look. And so we did. So they want to pay for it through CDBG money. Anyways, the point being that you need to you need to be able to call on resources and people everywhere, and whether they're defined as progressive or not progressive or whoever they are, you want if they have the ability to impact the city of St. Pete, I'm going to go talk to them and I'm going to try to get them to help the city of St. Pete.
And do you still have those relationships with people in Tallahassee? I know
I absolutely do it to people in Tallahassee. And
Scott is a different beast than
Well,
Bush.
but I still have, I know him. I know him, and I still have a relationship with him. I have a relationship with the legislative leadership on both sides, and I have relationships with people like Paul Ryan in Washington, who actually recruited me heavily to run for Congress when I decided not to do that. And so the point is those relationships can serve you when you're trying to help the city. But I also have a relationship with Bill Nelson, and when I was over at USF, I got him to help me when we were trying to get funding for the BP from BP to respond to the oil spill with our Marine Science Department. So if you're the type of person that is willing to work with everybody, which I've always been, then you're going to accomplish a lot more.
We work with Nelson, we work with Shahara, who's his aide, we work with Kathy Castor.
Kathy
all of
Castor.
them.
I would meet with Kathy Castor in Tampa when I was mayor. And, on whatever the issue was, it just. The mayor's race is supposed to be a nonpartisan race. When I sign my qualification papers, I have to sign an oath that says I am going to run as a nonpartisan and I'm going to serve as a nonpartisan, and I abide by that oath. The Mayor Kreisman is very much trying to make this a Democrat-Republican thing, and that's wrong. That is not in the best interest of the city going forward. It will not serve us well.
Let me say this: you should do a video.
Yeah.
You're saying
As he's
things that
talking,
are very compelling that will not be translated.
Yeah, I'll do a video.
Yeah.
I'll do
Yeah, I mean, you almost needed to do this, because some of the things.
And it's kind of maybe a series,
points.
because the article will be way too long. People won't. So maybe like a series, or like.
Well, that's what I'm thinking too. That's what I'm thinking.
Do a series, yeah.
But it's you know, and Bill Young was a good friend, and very supportive, but he wouldn't have called himself a progressive. You know, he would have called himself a public servant. He didn't like the labels, and but the point is you work with everybody.
And Jeffrey, you know better than most when we talk about how difficult it was, because you used to sit at those weekly meetings, or bi-weekly meetings with us on Tangerine Plaza.
Right.
It took a lot of work,
It
a
takes
lot of
work.
ingenuity, and a lot of creativity to get those things done.
Right. So let's switch gears, because the clock is ticking on time limit. What do you think? I want to ask a couple of things. Do you think this is appropriate to ask? Okay. A, how has the energy of the Black community changed since you were in office? That's not the question I had a question about. And then, what do you see as the biggest deficit or failing of the Kreisman administration? So those are two different questions. With regard to Black community advancement. What do you think? I don't want to go negative. So maybe you can scoop it up and ask it, here's what I see is needed at the time. So that you're phrasing it.
I think I think the key to a lot of is I think you have to have somebody that has the heart to do it, that you know that they have a passion to do it, that this is an important thing to them. And rather than talk about somebody else, why don't I talk about me? But I think the contrast is clear. And you know, before I was asked at a forum recently, what was it that sparked me wanting to be involved in redeveloping the Midtown community? You know, it's not a politically people would not have considered it a natural ally of mine back when I was running for mayor of the city of St. Pete. But it immediately became my top priority. Before I even took office, I had recruited maybe not. I maybe got sworn in before I convinced him, but to come and become my Midtown. My deputy mayor for Midtown Economic Development. There was a very specific reason that I did that. When I was in 1992, I started a program with Chester James. I don't know if y'all remember Chester James. He was his father was Chester James Sr. Was the founder of Jamestown, and Chester was pastor at 10th Street Church of God, and Elder Clarence Welch over Prayer Tower, and the YMCA, John Cannon at the YMCA. And we started a program called Neighbor to Neighbor. And the Neighbor to Neighbor program was a simple thing. It's not a big deal, but it was to provide Christmas for kids that are low-income kids in our community. And my idea was to get people that had enough money that they could give us $100, and then take that $100 and leverage it by getting gifts from other things to provide Christmas presents, a Christmas tree, a Christian storybook, and a Christmas dinner for every child as many children as I could, and raise the money for the community. And by the time I left, by the time I ran for office, we were doing like 400 or 500 families, probably 1,200, 1,500 kids. But what happened to me during that experience is I wound up walking through neighborhoods I had never really walked through, and I never forget the fact that the first child that I was, and what we did was we did ornaments. So we had the sponsor family and then the adopted family. And the adopted family, you would describe on the ornament a 5-year-old boy and a 3-year-old girl and your mother living in X neighborhood of St. Petersburg. And then on the ornament that the other family got, it would say a mom and dad and 17-year-old and 13-year-old living in Shore Acres, part of St. Petersburg. So it was without using names, it was a connection between the two families. And so we had 800 families connecting with each other through the program. And of course, it provided things nice for the kids at Christmas. What it provided for me was, we delivered all the Christmas trees. So by delivering those trees, I wound up walking through Jordan Park, and I wound up walking through Child Park. But I never forgot that my first family ornament was from Child's Park, and I had never heard of Child's Park before. I'd been in St. Pete for 8 or 10 years. I'd never heard of Child's Park. I'd never been in Child's Park to my knowledge. And so it made me want to go drive around Child's Park. And then we delivered Christmas. So I would go in, and I'll never forget going through Jordan Park during a rainstorm, because we were delivering trees during rainy Saturday morning. And all that struck me was how dirty it was, and the mud, and all of it. And then I'd open the doors and I'd go in, and there were.
It's a bad situation.
There were places that people lived that they didn't have any furniture, and I'm thinking, doing Christmas is great, but I want to change this. I want to figure out a way to change this. So I was doing that before I ever ran for mayor. I was in that 9 years before I ever ran for mayor. And so then when I ran, and actually when I became chairman of the chamber, I had 3 programs in '99 that I wanted to adopt. And it was based on this experience of the Neighbor program. I wanted to first address our North-South Expressway transportation issue. I want to address our image issue, and I put it together a program that we called Intercity Economic Development, because I wanted the chamber's resources to get focused on, and that was the beginning of what we started to call the Dome Industrial Park, and trying to get jobs into that part of the community and all that sort of stuff, to move the chamber resources into that. And the reason I bring that up is because I didn't just decide I'm going to run for office, so I need a political platform, so I'm going to go do this, and these people will vote for me if I do this, right? It was something that I had a passion to try to do when I got in. So I made it. I had 2 deputy mayors, one for neighborhoods, one for Midtown Economic Development, and I would have people say, "Well, why are you focusing all your energy on that part of the community? Because it's a big city, right? It's the west side, north side." And I would always tell them, well, there are 2 reasons. One is the morally right thing to do, because we have children growing up in an environment that we should not have in our city. Children should all have. When I get into the seamless city, I really mean what I'm talking about with seamless city. And we want to change it. I want to change that environment for the kids. And the other was, I said, and then I would tell people if they didn't care about that part of it, I would say, but it's best for you too. Because right now we're putting a disproportionate amount of social services and public safety services into a part of our community and not getting tax revenues out, and you're supporting that. So if we can help change that, that'll be better for everybody. And so between the 2 of them, they bought into it. And we did the Times did a survey. After I took office, we had been doing this for about a year and a half. And normally public safety is number 1, and number 2 is get taxes down. Number 3 is this. Public safety was still number 1. Number 2 was Midtown Economic Development for the whole city. So I guess I go back to, do you have a passion and a heart to make the change? And I was nobody doubted that about me when I was mayor for 9 years. It was nobody failed to see me at things. I would brought my kids were 4 and 5 when I became mayor. they grew up in Midtown as much as they grew up in any other part of our city. They were at every picnic, every pool opening, everything, library opening, the library readings, whatever it was, my family was there with me, and we were invested in the Midtown. We would drive through. Go taught me something. When we built Mercy Hospital Clinic, and then there was chaos after it happened. I don't even know the details of the chaos because Go was handling it, but I know there was chaos and there were problems, and he would say, Mary said, you can't just build it. You got to maintain it after you build it. You got to stay there. You got to stay attached to it, because if it goes down, you put all that effort into building it, and then it goes down. And I learned that, and so I would regularly. He did it more than I, but I would be there at least twice a week, driving through Midtown. The Daryl Arians will tell you that if the grass wasn't watered it was Arians, wasn't it? Yeah. If the grass wasn't watered at Jordan Park, and I saw a dead patch of grass, and I got Daryl Arians on the call and said, we are not going to let this slip. We got to push that thing. We got to fix that. And that's what we did constantly in that part of the community, because I knew I was going to be able to do downtown. I knew I could do beach ride. I knew that was going to happen. But I also knew it was really going to take me more effort to take an area that had been not completely ignored, but had not had the energy it needed for all those years, and try to lift that part of our community. I knew I was going to have to do that. And so the only way to do it is to be there, and I was there. I don't think that is happening now. I just do not. And it's not just me saying it. I talk to lots of people in this community, and they tell me that is not happening. That they don't see that kind of energy and attachment and passion. And we didn't fix everything, right? I know we didn't fix everything. We got more to do. We have more to effort. But if your desire is to change the opportunities and change the trajectory, so that the kids growing up there are going to be able to have the hope and the opportunity to do great things, and support themselves and take care of themselves, then you just keep looking until you find a way, And there's going to be a lot of tools in the toolbox to do it, but you keep looking to find a way. The one thing I'm very adamant about is whatever I do, I want to be able to document whether it is succeeding. And you don't succeed by spending money. I mean, you usually have to spend money to succeed, but you don't succeed simply by spending money. It's got to be tied to outputs that are going to be reasonable, that are going to be effective and appropriate. And the other thing is city money is important, but there's a lot more money outside of the city that if you go pull in and leverage, and it's the private sector. Mm-hmm. Bill Edwards, when I was mayor, I was recruiting him to put money. He put $250,000 into the Royal Theaters. The reason I got to know Bill is because I was out asking him for money for Midtown all the time. So he put $250,000 into the recording studio. He built a recording studio, and he did all the sound system for the Royal Theater. Mm-hmm. Which, by the way, the boys and girls, since I left, have abandoned that as an art center, which is a mistake. And I will be on them to change that back, or see if somebody else to do it, because mm-hmm. I think that again, it's being engaged. It's being engaged.
But more importantly, the kids asked what they abandoned with the forums that we were having. We had one specifically for kids, and they specifically asked for an opportunity to add the arts. They said, we don't want any more athletics. Can we have the arts? They talked about recording, they talked about poetry slams and whatever, and that's what we put in there. And when they came back with the proposal for the recording studio, they said, well, we need about $10,000. Bill Up was going to look at it and said, no, that's not up to my standard. Mm-hmm. And when he finished, it was $250,000 worth of
So do you feel progress has halted since in the Midtown area?
I feel there are some elements that can have success. I think the CRA can have an opportunity for success, but I do believe that it's not. I don't believe that coming out of the City Hall, I don't think the passion for it is what it was a year ago. I absolutely. Mm-hmm. And I will tell you, when I was thinking about running for Congress, I met with a group of folks, mostly church leaders in the community, to kind of weigh whether they would support me if I ran for Congress. And there was a number of them. Thankfully, they all said they would support me for Congress, but they said, please don't. They said, please come back and be mayor, because every one of them, because they felt that the progress was not continuing. And I think the reason I'm getting so much support in the Midtown Challenge Park communities is because there's just a feeling that it's just not the same in terms of the passion and the level of support that was there before.
Mayor, what are you hearing as the biggest detraction, like the biggest negative for the African Americans who are not backing you? What do they name to you or speak to you about as the reasons why they're not backing you?
Because I'm a Republican.
And what would your response be?
Because I'm a Republican.
Republican thing is hitting you big.
I wouldn't say it's hit me big, but it's that because I think I've got the vast majority right now of folks. But I think that people that are hesitant because of the party.
Okay, so the poll now, in both of your prior elections, you did take a vast majority. Recent polls show you neck and neck with President. So what do you mean by the vast majority?
I'm very confident that I have the vast majority.
Okay, you think the polls are off or not reflected?
I think the polls that you're referring to are not reflected.
Okay, gotcha.
And what
gotcha.
poll are you?
I'm referring to the St. Pete polls.
Yeah, it's a robocall poll of all voters.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so last night you used the term set aside, which is a traditionally Republican, a couple of your positions last night at the forum were traditionally Republican opinions. Even the term set aside is a traditionally Republican term. Almost as negative in some people's mind as the term quota. Where do I want to go with that question? There is.
So when it wasn't intended as negative. It was when you designate a certain portion of a construction project to go to as we had done to small businesses, for instance. What term do you use for that?
Okay. Targeted contracting. Targeted contracting. Or targeted contracting goal or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, so then let's draw out some clarification of that term. So there's a big move right now by several organizations, including 2020, the Opportunity Task Force, SEIU, for a universal community benefits agreement policy. Meaning, for every city-supported project, even if you're doing $1 million in infrastructure and no direct brick and mortar dollars, for every city-supported development project, to require and inspire, so not rigid, right? Not contradictory to the law, the case law on this topic, but to require and inspire targeted contracting, procurement, and jobs. What's your position on that?
Well, I guess I'd have to review more about it than just give a position.
Okay.
I don't response to a question like that.
Will you review more about it?
Of course, I have reviewed the community benefit program that St. Pete College has for the building that they built on 22nd Street, and that was a building that they built with their money, and I thought that was a positive thing.
Okay. You have another question? Okay, so I have one final question because I know our clock, we're out of time, I know. Are we? Let's see. Yeah,
I got time for
pretty
another
much out of
question.
time.
Yeah.
Okay, so you seem to come at South St. Pete with a tactical approach. Here's what I mean. When you speak about work done in South St. Petersburg, it's very project specific. Let's not have versus the way I hear you sometimes talk about the city as a whole, or downtown's development seems to be more big picture, more about the growth of the city economy as a whole, as opposed to pointing to individual projects. We don't want to misinterpret that as an orientation that's tactical as opposed to strategic. Is your vision as expansive for development and growth in South St. Petersburg as it is for
Yeah,
downtown and the rest of the
yeah,
city?
sure. I guess I would disagree with your premise. I don't think I talk about it that way. I do give the examples,
Right.
but if you, I'm a, if you read the book, if you read the book Cima City, if you want, I'll give you one. It's all strategic. What is it that you're trying to accomplish? And as I began this conversation, to me, the two things that you're trying to accomplish are improve the environment for the people that are living in all parts of our communities, and in the Midtown, Charles Park specifically, and then improve the opportunities for the people that are in that community in order to succeed. That's how I started this conversation. And then I do drill down in the tactical, because there are some people that never get past the 30,000 cloud view, right? But you got to get down into the specific things that you are doing and will do in order to accomplish those things. So I don't believe I do that. I don't believe I do use the examples because I want to prove to people I'm serious about doing it. But if others don't have examples of what they've done, then they talk 30,000 feet and never get below that. So I absolutely, I start out with my mission statement for the city as a whole, including Midtown and every place else, is I want to build the best city in America by improving the quality of life for the people that live there. And that's the summary of my mission for service as mayor of St. Petersburg. That doesn't mean everybody except the folks in Midtown and Child Pine. That means everybody. And the whole concept of seamless is you want everybody to have the same have the same opportunity, and all have elements of a good environment to live in. It's got to be safe. They have a place to live. They should be close to a playground. They should have a library nearby. They should have a clinic that they can go to if they need health care. They should have a grocery store or a bank. They should have the services, and that's why I do drill into those, because they were hard to do.
No, I understand.
They were hard to do, and the reason nobody had ever done them before I took office is because they're so hard
That
to do.
criticism, Mayor, comes from people seeing or hearing or buying into this philosophy of focusing on people and opportunity over places, which is a Christman thing.
Yeah, right.
And
right.
pointing to the fact that you always speak in terms of single projects, but how are you going to grow the economy? Because we actually posted and asked readers for stuff. Everything that was posted, almost everything with one exception, was about jobs, opportunities,
Industry coming out.
contracts. You know, we
Right.
need to grow this economy.
Right.
And Baker keeps talking about buildings and programs and
Well,
and
okay.
what is his strategy? What is his philosophy? Does he have
Yeah.
one, or is it going to go back to the same old days?
And keep in mind, there are paid bloggers doing that on the other side
Wow.
constantly, and so that this is not the public's response of that. The reality is and when I talk about opportunities, then what do? Yes, I do talk about examples, and one of the examples I'm talking about are things going on. So if you want people to get a Head Start program, you got to have a building to have it inside of, right?
Right.
And then once you and why not do it in a historic African American elementary school so that people can maintain some of the history of the community at the same time, and then have jobs inside as part of that program. But when the truth is we have a lot of jobs in our city. Mm-hmm. We do have a lot of jobs in our city. We have a lot of people that there's a barrier from them obtaining those jobs. And the greatest barrier is the lack of education and job training in order to become qualified for the jobs. So if we can, and that's not to say those are the only barriers. I recognize there are other barriers as well. But if we can, when I talk about putting a job corner, it's to remove that barrier so they can get those jobs. If people have a car, they can drive anywhere in the city they want to go to. That's what people do. People everywhere drive everywhere in the city to get their jobs, so they can have an income and live on. But the quickest way to remove that barrier is to get to make sure that they have a great education and make sure that they get job training. I've been meeting now, and I'm not. Please don't talk about it yet. but with ABC. ABC is the Association of Builders and Contractors. They have a program, an apprenticeship program. And it's one thing about talking about designating a certain amount of our folks in jobs have to have apprentices or something. You write an ordinance. Okay, you've written an ordinance, great, right? But where are those kids going to come to? And right now, ABC is a program in Hillsborough County and the city of Tampa, where they take apprentices. They recruit kids out of high school, seniors in high school, and you have to either have a high school degree or a GED. And you then, I'm going to leave after this. And then you then the contract and the contractors. They do that out of their own self-interest as well. It's not just philanthropic because they have a shortage of the trade skills. And we have a lot of building going on. We have a shortage of trade skills, qualified trade skills. So what they do is the student comes in and they give them a job, and they pay them for the job, and they also pay for their nighttime training to get skills. So they're learning on the job, but they then get training at nighttime in technical school or whatever it is, electricians, whatever it is, to get those jobs, to hold that job. And so that after 4 years, the program is done, they get certificated for that. And so that they can hold that job when they get out. So I think, and don't hold me this, but I think they said they have 600 Hillsborough students that are participating in that program right now. And Pinellas the same people participating, right? And I said, well, I want to make it. I want to do a ABC Mayor's Apprenticeship Program. And so I will partner with you. He said, well, the schools don't pay for the buses. I'll get the money for the buses. You know, one thing nice about having probably a couple hundred corporations and businesses that I work with on a regular basis is that's how I got 100 corporate partners for the schools when I was mayor. Every school had at least 2 corporate partners that were providing mentors and tutors and money and everything else. So I can find somebody to pay for the buses, even if the city didn't have the money for the buses. I can find somebody to pay for the buses to bring the kids to the conference that they have to recruit them for the program. And then those kids can get the skills and get the jobs and connect with the jobs that we already have. So I get it. We want to get more jobs all the time, but if an 18-year-old can get transportation, can get a cheap car and be able to drive to a job in Carolina or Clearwater and come back home and be able to support themselves, that's what I would like to do. But we have to get them the impediment. We have to clear that impediment for them in order to do that. But again, am I not talking big enough?
No,
you know what I'm talking about?
No,
you got to dig into the weeds.
I think you need to get in front of the camera.
Yeah, you got to.
Video camera.
You do get it though, right? You got to dig into the weeds and show people the details of stuff. You can't just be I'm the big picture guy, right? You got to be the big picture guy, which I am.
And that's why the forums don't do too much, because you have
get a
that
minute to
response.
respond.
Right.
And
so you're not digging into the issue.
And it's made to be confrontational.
Right.
It's made to, okay, how am I going to get hit? I'm going to get hit. And that doesn't allow you to have the dialogue sometimes.
And then you have the Times with their negative view of everything. So that's what we're trying to we're trying to get rid of the negativity and just actually get down to the issues.
We want this to be a contest of ideas.
Right.
We want to really serve up meaty information.